Jen, if someone's having reactions and finds they're increasingly sensitive to things like food, things in their environment, what can they do to start to turn that around?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a huge issue that we see. Many people get backed into what they feel like is a corner where it seems like no matter what they're doing, their symptoms are just getting worse and they're getting more reactive and they're getting more sensitive. So, one thing I always tell people is if you are at the point where you are having histamine or mast cell reactions to everything, that just means we have to target you doing the things that are actually going to progress you towards your ultimate goal of recovery. So at that point, hiding in a corner, avoiding anything is not going to get you anywhere. We actually have to say, okay, if you react to everything, let's implement the things that are actually going to be strategic towards making progress. So sometimes we have to crawl through the mud for a while and we have to acknowledge, yes, you are going to have reactions every day, but we can still make a strategic path forward. There are things you can do in the immediate to lessen some of your symptoms. And some of it is just making your immune system and nervous system feel as safe as possible right now. So, the obvious thing would be to do a big audit of your cleaning and hygiene products, make sure you're exposing yourself to as few chemicals as possible. Also, getting stressful, negative, overstimulating content out of your life, like stop listening to true crime, stop following people who have a bunch of drama on Facebook. Sometimes just simple things like that of curating your environment in the short term can make your nervous system feel a little bit safer. But ultimately, it's let's not get stuck in this idea that we're trapped. Let's acknowledge that your immune system is in a bit of a crisis state, and that's okay. We can still make a path forward step by step.
Great. I like that, the curating your environment, because even someone who's very reactive and they're just like, what's going on? That's like a calming first step. And most people can start to pick out some things like, okay, yeah, this is not helping. So let me reduce it or remove it. And then as they do, like instantly, it's a calmer surrounding. So I can see that helping. Someone does that, then where can they go from there? This analogy of starting to crawl through the mud might be a little scary or confusing. What does that mean to people?
So we use a low histamine version of the specific carbohydrate diet. So the problem is a lot of people go on a low histamine diet to try to reduce their symptoms. And that does actually help for a lot of people. But unfortunately, it usually hits a plateau where people reduce their symptoms for a little bit and then it will stall, or then their symptoms will start getting worse again. And that's because a low histamine diet is just a symptom repressing diet. It's not actually getting to a major root cause, which is huge imbalance or dysbiosis in the gut microbiome. And we know that complex carbohydrates that are not properly broken down by a weak digestive system can actually irritate the lining of the gut. They can feed overgrown microbes, especially bacteria. And so, just because a food is low histamine and you're not acutely reacting to it, doesn't mean that it's actually contributing to your recovery. So, we help people strategically start to eliminate complex carbohydrates out of their diet, so starchy foods, and even if they are not reacting to some of it. So a lot of people with histamine intolerance will say, "Oh, rice or oatmeal are some of the only foods that I can tolerate," and that might be true, but it's going to keep you stuck, right? So even if we have to crawl through the mud, transitioning you to foods that might make you a little more reactive in the short term, they might actually be helping nourish your immune system and getting you a place to where you can crawl out of that corner. And so we have to help people through that process.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's a little bit different idea. So you're prioritizing the nutrition and nourishment of the immune system and body over even some reactions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mentioned the window of tolerance earlier. That's where we have to keep it. We have to learn to read the signs and symptoms of your body so we can work with your body to figure out what level of reactivity you can tolerate and we can push through to an ultimate end of giving your body the tools it needs to recover. while, being slow and paced and gentle and not overloading anything.
Do you have any examples of foods where that is commonly the case, where it's good nutrition and helpful, but people tend to react, or is it completely individual?
Yeah, I mean, the classic GAPS foods. So I'm a GAPS practitioner, so I use the gut and psychology syndrome diet, but it's meat stock and ferments is like the cornerstone, which are huge no-nos if you have histamine intolerance. I mean, that'll just blow you up. So, but they're incredibly healing foods. Meat stock has these high levels of amino acids that can help to nourish and rebuild the gut lining. And people with MCAS, almost universally have leaky gut. Same with ferments. We usually have this huge amount of dysbiosis and a lack of beneficial microbes in the gut. And fermented foods is a huge dose of beneficial probiotics. But they can, because they're high histamine, they can make people have bad reactions in the beginning. So these would be foods that we would introduce once we get you a little more stabilized. They're not foods that we start with. But I have had now hundreds of people who were extremely histamine intolerant get to a point where they are eating like 3 cups of kefir and 6 cups of meat stock every day with no reactions, and they're actually so much healthier than they were before we started. So there is a way forward. We just have to know how to strategize the approach and how to pace it appropriately for your body.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. So we got curating your environment, getting the nutrition, and skillfully working with whatever level of reactions happening. Anything else you'd add to that for someone who's in the space of a lot of reactions, their head's spinning a bit, and they're just trying to make sense of it all and put together a path forward for themselves to start?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go back to that idea of befriending. Start talking to yourself. Start talking to your nervous system. Your immune system is scared. That's why it's reacting this way. It's seeing toxins everywhere, it's seeing pathogens and invaders everywhere. And some of that is objectively true. And some of that is this feedback loop that your body has gotten into. And so you sometimes have to take the lead and let your nervous system and your immune system know, like, hey, it's okay. We have a plan, we have a way forward. We're going to get through this together. And sometimes that simple act of taking that leadership role in a moment of crisis can be incredibly calming and soothing on a subconscious level. So it's okay to talk to yourself. It's okay to talk to your immune system. It's okay to talk to your nervous system. And it's a beautiful way to start building a relationship.
Amazing. It's okay to keep muttering to myself. I'm going to keep doing it.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all the info and knowledge and your experience, Jen.
Yeah. Thank you.